Hi, I'm Ralph Preston. Every Tuesday we have these recovery and science Zoom meetings where we try and bring you some useful information for your recovery, or in the case of case of today, bring you something very interesting that you might be able to experience for yourself, and that would be stroke camp. And today we've got Mary Lee Nunley, who's the founder of Stroke Camp. And I'll let her tell you a little bit about it. Her husband had a stroke, and that obviously anybody who's had a stroke or around stroke realizes there aren't enough resources for us. So she's one of the many people who said, I can do something about that, and started stroke camp, and it's grown quite a bit. And I'll let her talk rather than me tell her story. Let's let her tell her story. So just for those who don't know, tell us a little bit about how stroke camp got started and what the concept is and what people could expect if they attend one.
Okay, I will certainly give a little bit of a bio. And I am very informal with my presentations. And so if there are questions, people just give me a wave. I'd love to answer questions. There is so much about what we do. I may overlook something. Polly's been to a number of our camps, so she may have a question or an oversight that I find. And so let's get going. Mary Lee Nunley is my name, and I am the caregiver in year 25 for my husband, John, who had a stroke in 2001. So I've been at this caregiving gig for a long time. How did Retreat and Refresh Stroke Camp start? It started out of the ashes of a bad day that a caregiver had, me.
Hmm.
Um, our family of origin did a lot of caregiving. Caregiving doesn't frighten me or any of that. But
What
a
the
new
hell?
caregiver full time for
This
a
audio is
spouse that
doubling
has
up because it's got live
that has had a
YouTube going at the same time.
oh, do I need to stop? I heard
Uh,
okay.
I'm not sure that was a question.
Okay.
Sorry.
Anyway, um, and you put one foot in front of the other, and there's a lot of therapy and a lot going on those first couple of years after a stroke. And my husband worked hard and he was making a good recovery. Um, and his mood was all over the place, up and down, up and down. I know many of you have experienced that and accept and recognize that it's a part of a brain injury. Some of us don't learn that right away until you learn more about the brain.
Hmm.
And the impetus for me putting my foot in front of the other and doing something was on a day when, as happens often, I ran into a friend, happened to be at Walgreens, and the friend looks at me and says, "How's John?" And I said, "He's fine," but it triggered in me an emotion that was huge. And the emotion was, does anybody care about me? I am crumbling. I'm burned out. I'm exhausted. Um, and nobody asks how I am. Um, and so then this is a God thing for me. Within a few days, I read an article about, it wasn't really a camp like what we do, but it was an opportunity for people that had aphasia to get together. And I thought, that's what we need to do. I need to connect with my support group. I need to connect with these other people on a deeper level to find out, how do they survive long-term caregiving? I had been doing it 2 years. Some of them had been doing it 7 or 8. And I'm like, I don't want him to die, but I don't think I can do this for 5 years. That's what you feel in that moment. The camp actually was framed around camps that my sister had done many years prior for children with cystic fibrosis. They had special needs, special medications, special therapies, and such. And so we had accommodated them for a week-long kids camp for kids with that specific disease. So the bottom line is, I went to my sister and I said, could we do something like this? We did for CF camp. Could we do something like this for our stroke survivors? And that was kind of the seed that was planted. And we put together a weekend retreat. I went to my support group, got 100%. Yes, that sounds exciting. I went to Illinois Neurological Institute for funding. I got the support of Dr. Wong, who was the founder of the Illinois Neurological Institute, and volunteers and funding to do that first weekend retreat. And going forward, my idea was to do these retreats here in central Illinois for a weekend, and sail off into the sunset. But Larry Scher, who is on staff with me, said, I think we could figure out a way to take these camps to the people. He had the idea then, because Illinois Neurological Institute had supported us. He said there must be other hospitals or hospital systems that would support us for this event. So we started pounding the pavement and found our first 2 paid sponsors 2 years later. And kind of the rest is history. We have done about 315 camps in 28 states since the start. So I guess it was a good idea. So people often ask, what do we do for those weekends? The weekend is, everything we do for the weekend is intentional. It is intended to help everyone attending fill one of the 4 pillars that we list, which is support. Support for caregivers, support for survivors, and actually support for the volunteers who are often medical professionals as well. So support, socialization. I think probably I'm preaching to the choir here in that your socialization is limited after a stroke. You don't get out and about like you once did. You don't do the things you once did. You have to kind of recreate that. And a lot of people just don't find ways to do that as easily as others. I think support groups are the pillar of that. And there are so many since COVID. The negative COVID, the positive is that there's so many events like this that people can find other ways. Education. That education might be a formal education with a presentation or a panel with medical professionals about many, many different topics. But that education can also be in our discussion group, which happens 3 times through the weekend, where I share a tip that helps me manage John. Somebody else shares a tip that helps them manage their survivor. And then the survivors share ways that they have learned to cope, ways that they have accommodated. So the education is both formal and informal. And the other thing is relaxation. We make sure that we have a part of the weekend that is just simply relaxing, setting your mind apart from I've had a stroke, woe is me, to just embracing some relaxation. So those are the 4 pillars, and everything we do fits under one of those categories. So the flow of the weekend, I'll go through the flow of the weekend quickly and then maybe field any questions that anyone has. Most of our camps are Friday through Sunday. The volunteers from the hospital sponsors the camp with a fee and the commitment of 12 to 15 volunteers and the commitment to find survivors and caregivers, up to 20 survivors and their family members, their caregivers. So it's a small group, no more than about 60 people at any given camp. Again, that's intentional, because as a stroke survivor, who wants to go and try and meet 100 or 200 people? You want to build friendships. You want to build relationships, and that can be done on a small, more intimate basis. So that's the reason for our numbers. So on Friday, the volunteers come in the morning. We get everything set up. Our cargo van will have arrived. I should do this. Let me see if I can do this. I'm going to change my background real quick. I blurred my background.
Let me give you permission.
I'm in the warehouse.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to share a picture.
No, I'm in the warehouse. So I blurred my background because there's people in. I needed to be out of my office because I'm sharing an office. So our cargo van will arrive with all kinds of equipment, everything that is needed to execute the weekend. The volunteers help us get set up. Campers come in, survivors and caregivers and their family members. They come in between 1:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon, get settled in. The places that we hold our camps are private rooms with private bathrooms. There is not dorm style living. We've got a couple of camps that do have like a Jack and Jill bathroom that you share with a neighbor, but most of them have their own private bathrooms. And if there are Jack and Jill bathrooms, the people know their neighbors so that, you know, you're not sharing a bathroom with a complete stranger. But I think that's only 2 or 3 out of the 25 camps, so no big deal. Anyway, they get settled in their room. The first activity that we do all together is a drum circle that is led by a board certified music therapist, helping us build community, helping us build the circle of friendship, the circle of love that will happen throughout the weekend. And after that, we go right into our first discussion group. Each year we have kind of a theme and a curriculum, but those discussion groups are whatever they become. We have some questions to lead in after the introductions, but they take on a life of their own. And I've been to some years I've been to 8 or 10 camps, and no or two are alike, even though the questions are the same. It's a chance for us to share with others. I think one of the most important things is you feel like you're not alone. I think as caregivers, a lot of times we feel like we're alone and we're the Lone Ranger. So when I'm in those groups, it's like, you know, I've been doing it a long time. I can help others. Others have an idea. They can help me, but I'm not the only one doing this. And I think the survivors, they feel the feedback that we get in their discussion groups, they feel normal. They feel as though someone else is struggling with the same deficits or the same struggles or have been through the same struggles, and they can support each other. But a lot of times we say it's a weekend of feeling normal because all of us there understand the potential deficits, the aphasia. My husband has aphasia, waiting for those words or helping come along with conversations. We know to wait. So anyway, after that first discussion group, we have dinner, and our Friday night activity is in teams. We always have a kind of a getting acquainted team activity where there's 3 or 4 teams that are set up of 8 or 10 people, and we separate survivors and caregivers. So survivors will not be with their caregiver in the same group. And sometimes that feels a little bit uncomfortable for survivors especially, or sometimes that caregivers that are helicopter caregivers. But we have discovered that it's a chance for survivors to realize they can lean on a volunteer for pushing their wheelchair or cutting their food or getting support. And the caregivers can take a breath because they're not, you know, chained to their survivor, making sure they're doing okay. Someone else is making sure they're doing okay. So that is, again, is intentional. Friday night ends up with a campfire and s'mores and some singing around the campfire done by the music therapist. And we try and end those by 8:30 or so because people are tired. Every activity is optional. People can come and go as they want, but most people participate in everything because I think they recognize, you know, the value. Most of our activities are no more than about 45 minutes because we know of the fatigue factor or the focus factor. So we're very sensitive to that. Just that people don't need much more than that 40 to 45 minute time. Now, our discussion groups sometimes go an hour or a little more, but those are just lively, informal discussions, not a presentation, so to speak. Saturday morning is the second, after breakfast, is the second discussion group, followed by the two of the favorite hours for many people, our pampering hours from 10 to 12 on Saturday. We have paraffin hand dips. We have mini manicures. We have foot massagers. We have a massage therapist doing chair massages. We have crafts. We have jigsaw puzzles, color pages, all kinds of things where it just takes you away from life and just relaxing. And it's just kind of the stations are set up and people rotate from station to station as they are interested in the activity. We have a massage sign-up sheet. So you sign up for your massage and then someone will come and get you so you don't have to wait in line or anything. So that is our Saturday morning, followed by lunch. And in the early afternoon, we usually have a few activities, but nothing. We usually have crafts still available. Sometimes we're still doing the mini manicures or something, but and the puzzles and such. But for the most part, there isn't always a firm activity right after lunch because we know some people like to rest. So rest, napping, and if somebody needs a nap and they want to miss everything in the afternoon, they're welcome to do so. We're not dictating any of this, but we've learned to try and tone it down that first hour after lunch for those that need to rest. If there are activities like boating or fishing or rock wall climbing or zip lining or kayaking, handicap kayaking, we had that at the last camp we did. Those activities will be on the schedule and people can pick and choose to go to those at the time. Some of them, sometimes they're in the morning, sometimes they're in the afternoon. And much of that is dictated by the facility that we rent out for the weekend, and the time that they have providers for that. All of those are not available everywhere, but some of those are available some places throughout our season. We always have an educational presentation Saturday afternoon, and that often is a neurologist. Sometimes it's a panel with PTOT and a neurologist. We've had pharmacists. We've had people talking about nutrition. We've done exercise, all kinds of things. So that is coordinated with the sponsoring hospital for the presentation that they would like to provide to us. We also have a traveling adaptive equipment presentation that our staff can do should the hospital not have a educational presentation. So we cover all bases. Our last support group is before dinner on Saturday, and then Saturday night is always our what we call extravaganza. Each year we have a different theme. This year it's the 70s. And so you might see a little bit of disco fever. You might see a little bit of YMCA. You might see a little bit of the Newlywed Game, and things that were popular during the 70s. Every year, someone says that's the best year yet. I've had at least 3 people say to me, I think this is the best year yet. And I find it interesting because in the moment, you're having such a great time, and it does feel like it's the best moment of the year. But anyway, I didn't realize when I started this out, before we even became a nonprofit, we started out with one theme. Then the next year we did another theme. And the third year we did another theme. And then it's like we became a real thing. So now our challenge is every year having a theme and making that work. So far, so good. And then after our Saturday night extravaganza, which will include some games and some entertainment and activities and things that are surrounded the theme. This year we're doing a little bit of karaoke, and we are doing a modified Newlywed Game. So it's been really, really fun. It's been fun. And then we end up with bingo at the tables with prizes for everyone before they go to bed. And again, we try and end everything by the 9 o'clock hour, just in case people need to get settled in. If people want to stay up and visit later than that, they are more than welcome to do so. But we find that sometimes if there's something going on, people think they should be there. So we try and wind it down in time for them to get a reasonable night's sleep. Sunday morning, we start out with usually packing and loading people out of their rooms, because most places we need to be out before we're physically out. We need to be out of the sleeping rooms. We have a reflection time, which is non-denominational with a little bit of a spiritual twist, although it's not really a religious service, but it is a spiritual time. Again, optional for people that want to participate. Then we have our minute to win it games with the teams again, playing some silly minute to win it games or modified minute to win it games. And then a drum circle, closing drum circle. And then we have a slideshow of the pictures that we've taken so far in the weekend, which is really a highlight of the weekend, to see yourself having a good time all weekend. We have our noon meal. And then people are free to go in the afternoon so that travel time would get them home in reasonable time on Sunday. Whew. So that is a typical stroke camp weekend. I want to mention a couple of other things that we're doing, and then I would love to have some questions or anything for clarification that you would need. We also do strikeout stroke awareness If you hear of a strikeout stroke event at a baseball game in your community or another community, that's us. We are blessed by being connected with enough of the major and minor league organizations throughout the country that we usually get upwards of 1 million people that hear our Be Faster Signs of Stroke message at a ballpark. And
Wow.
that's huge. And then, as we mentioned before, some people were on a new experiment this year is our stroke conference days. And we have done 2 of those, just testing it out, testing the waters. And we have it looks as though we're going to be doing 6 next year if the sponsors all come through with the details. And that is more of a, you know how people go to their educational conferences for their specialties, whatever it is. This is kind of this is your conference day for survivors and caregivers. The ones that we've had, we find corporate sponsors and local sponsors, and they have their tables. So it's kind of like you get to go to the table and get freebies and talk to people about their specialties. And the ones that we've had, some of the things that pop into my mind, we've had a pharmacist. We had a therapist talk about depression, which was one of the best received presenters we've ever had. We had therapy dogs, home health care, talking about how the home health, and then supportive living. We've had comedian. We've had a yoga instructor. So a wide variety of speakers, and that's dependent on the committee and who they find in their community that would like to be a vendor and a speaker. So the ones that we've had have met with great support. Originally, we thought the sweet spot would be 100 people, but we have discovered that the sweet spot is around 50 people because those survivors and caregivers want to connect with each other, get to know each other, and chat with each other. And we now, after the first one, are allowing like an hour and a half around lunchtime for people just to move with the tables, to visit with their neighbors, and connect. And so that was kind of an outcome that we couldn't have anticipated, but we're incorporating into them going forward because, again, it's a chance for socialization, a chance for support and connection.
Wow.
So that's a really quick overview, and I tried to slow down, but I talked very fast.
That's okay. You get a lot of people coming back from year to year. I know Polly's gone to a number of them. I think Martha's either went the second time or maybe planning on going the second time. You get a lot of people that come back from year to year for
We have a 70% return rate.
Wow.
So the last time we haven't done a study for a few years, I don't think since COVID, but about 70% are returning campers. Our biggest challenge right now is the hospital sponsors. Hospitals' healthcare is tightening up. Many of the hospitals recognize the benefit of this for their community and for their survivors that are out in the community, but sometimes our champions within the hospital don't sign the checks. And so our biggest challenge is keeping our costs go up, and we're running a nonprofit. We don't make any money, but so keeping the sponsors engaged, keeping the champions connected with us, so that they can go to the right people, and providing the support, the evaluations after camp, letting them know that how wonderfully it does support the survivors and the caregivers. We do have a couple of new camps that we're looking to for next year, and a couple of camps that didn't happen this year that should happen next year. Typically, now is the time we are setting up our 2026 schedule. As soon as we have a camp in a location, we go ahead and talk with them. We talk with the facility that we host it at and get that on the calendar for the next year. Typically, those papers aren't signed until the very end of the year. So usually by January, early February, we have our potentials all on our website. So if people are interested, mark your calendar for February 1st to either give us a call or take a look at what camps we have and what areas we have across the country. We're heavily in the Midwest and East and South, not very much out West, although we do have New Mexico and Phoenix area. But California, Portland, Washington, we'd love some hospital there to call us up and say, bring your camp here. So that's kind of how that works. But we're always looking for new sponsors. This is funny backstory. About year 7 or 8, when we had, I think, 12 camps, and I had it in my mind that we could do no more than 15. It's only a year's time. We can only do 15. And Larry, who's humbled me more than once in life, said, we can do more than that. And I said, how? And then a friend of mine said, the how is none of your business. The universe is generous. The universe is big. Don't stand in your own way. And so I didn't say no anymore. And we've done as many as 30 camps in a year, sometimes double camp weekends where we have 2 vans going 2 different directions. We are supported by a volunteer staff of about 25 to 30 individuals, in addition to our very small staff here of 7.
I think you could do 100 of them and there'd still be people who were wanting to try and find one near them. That was the biggest thing that I noticed last year when we talked about stroke camp, and then this year promoting it. Everybody said, where's one near me? And
I get that all the time.
I know, and you do a pretty good job of covering the country, but you know, people can still end up being 5, 6, 8, 10 hours away from a
Exactly.
camp. Some
True.
people are able and willing to make that kind of level of trip. Some people aren't.
Yeah, many people are not. Yeah,
Are
absolutely.
not. So that's your challenge, to get to 100 somehow. No, I'm not Larry. So let's talk. So if I wanted to have one in South Carolina and champion it, I would need to find a hospital system. Did you ever have people do that?
We do. We have had that.
Impossible task for me to try and
It is
work
not.
with you to get one going here, or
The biggest thing for us is to get an interested individual who can become what we call our champion.
right?
They are, more times than not, they are a stroke coordinator or a stroke support group leader who sees the value of it. And then they help us get connected with the hospital, with the powers that be at the hospital that would need to approve it. And we can't quote much of a price ahead of time, because we've had camps that were economical here in the Midwest, and we've had camps that cost us $50,000 out in the Northeast, in the Boston area. So I can't necessarily give a range, but once we know the part of the country and the facility, we can give a ballpark figure of what it would cost and the work. We have a really turnkey operation. The stroke coordinator, if they can find the funding, all they have to do is put it out there to their survivors and caregivers, because we can't get that because of HIPAA, and their volunteers who can commit to that weekend, and it's a go. They don't have to do anything else except show up. I mean, we do all the shirts, we do all the registration, we do collect all the fees for this. And the camper fee is $150 per camper. That is for the entire weekend, room, lodging, t-shirt, all the activities. And we do have a scholarship fund it's getting close to being eliminated, but it's getting close to being broke. But we do have a scholarship. And so nobody's ever been turned away. We've always found the money to support people as partial fee, not the whole fee, but partial fee. They just need to let us know that they need some help, and no one ever knows who gets a scholarship and who doesn't.
So it's very reasonable anyway for food and lodging for a weekend. So I'm trying to there are 4 hospital systems in my area, and I know the stroke coordinator at all 4 of them, and I'm trying to get them to work together to form Kimmy's nodding her head because she knows about this, trying to get them to work together to form a local consortium of support.
What's the hospital system?
Which there are 4 of them. Tidelands, Grand Strand, Conway Medical Center, and Seacoast McLeod. So I'm
Yeah.
just wondering
I
if
mean,
like somebody,
if Larry could have a conversation with a couple of stroke coordinators or just get a Zoom meeting with some stroke coordinators and cast the vision, that's the place to start.
well, I'll work on that because
Okay.
I think you're in Virginia to Florida. I think there's I don't know that there's anything in South Carolina or Georgia. Um, anyway,
There, yeah. Prisma does sponsor one in South Carolina that is actually held at a facility over in North Carolina because they're on that part of the country. But we have nothing more than that. Nothing in Florida right now, nothing in Georgia right now.
yeah, there's one in Asheville. Is that the one you're talking?
Asheville, yes, Asheville's, it's been it's been over 10 years that Asheville's been going.
Right. Well, I'll try and I'll see if I can't make that happen. So an ordinary person can, if they'd like to see one near them, can champion the cause, work, try and find a stroke coordinator, get with you and Larry and try and make the whole thing happen.
Absolutely. That has happened more than once.
Well, that's encouraging. Because as you know, well, I wouldn't be telling you anything, tell you that, to get hospital systems to cooperate with you sometimes is difficult.
No.
No. Try getting four of them to cooperate together when they hate each other and they're in competition.
We've got probably maybe 3 communities that have that going on. Lincoln, Nebraska is one, where there are 3 hospital systems. And they probably don't like each other system to system, but they work magically for the benefit of their survivors and caregivers for camp. And we cannot commend them enough for all coming to the table and being professional for their community.
Right. Well, and that, I started thinking about the stroke camp thing when you and I started talking about doing this again this year. But, I started it because I just think it's wrong that everybody's working individually and not working communally for the benefit of the stroke survivor community. We're the ones that lose out on this whole deal when, the hospital systems exist as little islands.
Yeah, there's 3 Encompass facilities in Phoenix that all work together for one camp. They're 3 separate hospitals in 3 separate parts of the community. They are still the same company, but they still each have, their coordinator.
I love this. Speaking of Phoenix, I love the story of Martha, who's here today. Last year was, I think, less than a week before you were doing Phoenix, and she managed to get from San Francisco Bay Area to Phoenix 4 days later and enjoyed it.
Good deal. Good to hear, Martha. Thank you.
I don't know if she's just listening or willing to talk, or did the one in Phoenix happen already? Because I think last year it was in April or May.
I was at the one in April. That was the first one of the season. There's 2 more coming up. One of them is not until in the fall, in September.
So,
I don't have the dates all memorized, but there's still 2 more in the Phoenix area.
wow. Well, and going from San Francisco to Phoenix is a commitment. Of course, they have a place in Phoenix that they spend some time in the winter, so they're used to making that drive and yeah. So come on, people, give us some questions. I can always ask questions, but it's about you guys. So, Carly, hey Carly, good to see you. You may be muted. Yep, you are. Still muted.
Okay,
There we go.
okay. Hi, Polly. Nice seeing you this year. I am. I tried to find out what camps were in the Northeast, the Boston area, and I was not able to log on the website that was provided. would you be able to tell me if there are any camps in this surrounding area? I have driven to North Carolina, South Carolina too, Ralph. And the
Now, Ralph,
drive
yeah,
would not.
UnitedStrokeAlliance.org. Ralph just put it in the notes.
I just dropped
Okay.
it in the chat. I dropped a link in the chat that will help you find. And I don't know how you solve this or if it's solvable, Mary Lee, but it'd be great to know which ones, like, when I went, I noticed that there was all the ones coming up, which are 10 or 15 left this year. And it'd be great to know, like, maybe provide a list over on the side of all the places that you've had them and you expect to have them again next year. Because if you have one in Phoenix, and I know there are three in Phoenix, but let's say you had one in Phoenix in May and somebody looks in June, they don't know that there's one in Phoenix next
Yeah,
year.
that's a good point. That really is. That's a very good point. The dilemma that I see is I don't want to list a potential camp and have people get excited about it and that's the one I want to go to, and then the hospital system pulls the trigger, doesn't
Yeah, I know.
the map has a bullet on the map on the strokecamp.org page, which is, you can get to it through the United Stroke Alliance page, but strokecamp.org, there's a map of all the places that we will be. It is to be assumed that we will do our level best to be back at all those locations the next year.
That would be one way to solve it. Strokecamp.org. I'll drop that link in the.
And on the homepage, it has a map with bullet points of all the camps.
Interesting. It came up, I typed in strokecamp.org and it came up United Stroke Alliance.
Yeah, I think they're linked together. Click find a camp.
Yep. There's the map. Yeah, I'll drop that in the chat. Anyway, it's a great idea. And like I said, I don't know if it's solvable, but it would be great if somehow you could
Yeah.
let people know.
People who have been to camp get our newsletter. We always publish it in our newsletter. And we just updated our website last year, and we probably need to start posting our newsletters on our website so that people can click on the newsletter and read that and such. So that's one of the things that's been on my radar. But I need to get staff to do that.
And I'm not trying to cause trouble. I find that if you don't make it easy for people, they don't.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. They're going to do more than 2 clicks. They're going to be 2 clicks and they're done. I get it.
Right. Yeah. So if you don't make it easy, when I let researchers post things about their research or studies or whatever, I always tell them, you got to put a clickable link, you got to put an email address and phone number, you got to put them near the top. People won't even read to the bottom. You put them near the bottom.
Exactly.
And then Ralph gets a lot of questions. This is twofold because I answer every question or problem in all the Facebook groups I have. So when somebody puts the link at the bottom, I get like 4 questions, like, how do I find the survey? Where's the link? And you can't say, you dummy, it's at the bottom of the text.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you're right. Pay attention,
Don't
folks.
get out the gun and shoot the messenger.
That's right.
Anyway, so I always, that's where it comes from, trying to make it easy for people so that they'll actually find it. So,
Exactly.
all right. Somebody has to have some questions. I can keep it. How do you get around? So the hospital provides you with some number of stroke survivors. Is that how you get around HIPAA? Because in working with hospital systems, I've had a lot of trouble because I run into HIPAA when I don't think I should run into HIPAA. You know, like for example, we wanted to put a flyer up about a support group meeting in the hospital in the rehab room that people were in before they went home. They said that's a
Yeah.
HIPAA violation. I'm going, no, you're not giving me anything. You're putting up, if they want to contact and find out about the support group, then they're taking action and they're giving, they're consenting to, you know, give us their name. But anyway, I've had a lot of trouble with
Typically, I
HIPAA.
mean, for us, once we secure the camp, we provide a flyer and postcards. And I know some of them put those flyers in discharge packets, but that's not always necessarily the best way. Support groups are the best way because right when you're discharged from the hospital, I think most of you will nod yes to this. It's too soon to think about going to camp. You've got to have a year and a half out, and you realize this is my new life. And what can I do about it? So
Right.
most of our people are at least a year to 2 years out. And that's the time when the loneliness, the depression sets in, that all of those emotions that we try and minimize at stroke camp.
Yeah, we can have them busy earlier, but you're busy being overwhelmed. The other thing about that packet is they gave me this big packet, and I got one hand, I can't get out of my lap, I can't flip through the pages of the packet. There's a lot of things that people don't think about in terms of
Exactly.
interfacing with stroke survivors.
I didn't look at the packet and for 3 years, and then I found it, off in somewhere in a corner, and I'm like, "What's this?" I'm like, "Well, it's too late for this now."
This is quite a good one, but it's like, yeah, it's like 60 pages.
And I understand hospitals are required to do that. I understand that. Hospitals are required to provide that
They
for their
are?
certifications and everything. So I understand it. I don't mean to criticize it, but I don't know that it's effective, is my point.
Ralph, I can answer your question. The way it works here is United Stroke Alliance isn't contacting stroke survivors in the Richmond area. The hospitals are contacting based on their, like Mary Lee was saying, the support group mailing list, that it's going out to maybe a discharged patient list directly from the hospital. When you register on the United Stroke Alliance page. So you are giving United Stroke Alliance your contact information.
Right.
So there's no crossover of the hospital sending information to United Stroke Alliance or United Stroke Alliance reaching out directly to patients at the hospital.
Right.
Correct.
So it has to be a two-step process.
No, it's just there's no middleman.
Right.
The hospitals are dealing directly with the stroke survivors, and then United Stroke Alliance is dealing directly with the hospital.
Okay.
Correct. Thank you for that clarification, Polly. I do not want to be rude, but since my husband has a home health visit coming up, I need to wrap up within the next 5 minutes. So if there's any other questions, I would love to entertain those. But because of his aphasia, I have to be the interpreter. Kim, did you have something?
Yes, thank you and Ralph for offering this. I think it's very important. But I have a question. Has anybody ever worked with a grant? And the reason I ask this is my husband is a professor here, and he is he's done a $1 million and a $2 million grant with stroke studies, but there's also things that they can do that they get funding that would help, like support groups. So I'm just wondering if that's anything that you have participated in or been associated with. Mary Lee.
We have not been very blessed by grants. We do have a couple of device companies that support us, and we support them. But as far as general grants, we have not been very successful with that. we find grants for research, we find grants for things that we don't do, but what we do is so unique. I'll be honest, it doesn't fit into any criteria. We'll go through like a grant application, and the one I found that I was so excited about was through AARP, and I did the whole grant. I spent all the hours doing it, and I was just sure we would get it because we fit so perfectly, and we didn't. And it was 50,000. I was going to pay for one camp with it. You know how my mind was going. But we are so unique that we don't quite fit. So I think we would need someone who's very familiar with grants to find the niche that whether it's our camps or whether it's our strikeout strokes or whether it is something else that we do, that we could write it. I mean, we do youth education on stroke in 5th grade classes, and we share that curriculum with other people. We also do prevention and awareness and recovery and stroke at businesses, where we do education for the signs and symptoms of stroke in businesses. Everybody knows heart attack symptoms. Everybody doesn't know stroke symptoms. These are all programs that we put together, but they don't fit. So Marylee at strokecamp.org is my email. If you come up with any nugget, I would worship the ground you walk on.
I have somebody I'll talk to for you, Mary Lee. I met a stroke survivor who was up until the time of her stroke. She has visual issues and balance issues, and
I don't know if it's
can't drive. But she was a ED fundraiser and grant writer. The thing about grants is if you don't write them correctly, they don't read them.
Right.
I'm not saying you didn't write it correctly, but it's a
I
very
wrote it with my knowledge, which was minimal.
well. You have to follow.
Craig would be Ralph.
You have to follow certain.
Craig would be willing. Craig would be willing to write one because he gets them accepted all the time, and that's his specialty. So I could work with you, Ralph, and maybe we could work with Mary and craft something.
Let's make that connection.
I'll talk to you, Kim, and Julie, and see what we can put together.
Sounds good.
Also, so
anybody else have a question that I didn't? Anything?
Say we need to respect your time. So
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't plan this latest hospitalization, folks.
Well, you're talking to a group that kind of understands.
Yeah. I know you do. I know everyone of you
and
do.
we all appreciate you taking your time, not canceling, and taking the time you had and coming and talk to us. Maybe next year we should do it in February while the whole schedule's
Let's kind of plan that. Let's plan that February or early March before all the camps are full. Yeah,
that way when people look, they'll see the whole year, or maybe
I think that's good.
Ma'am, am I muted, Ralph?
You're okay. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to say hi. I was at the Prescott camp this last spring. My husband and I sat at the table with you and John on Sunday.
Oh, I can't see your face, Martha.
My husband was the one who so indelicately said you remind him of his grandmother.
Yes. I remember now. Thank you for saying that.
Adored his grandmother, so that was a compliment. But I didn't know if you'd remember us, but that was us.
Yes, I do. Yes. I remember you now. I'm lousy with names. I'm great with faces, but I'm lousy with names.
That was the second camp
Yeah. Yes. I remember you now. And now that I hear your voice, I remember your voice too. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, Mary Lee. And for everybody out there in YouTube land, I'll put information on Mary Lee's contact information and the links to finding a stroke camp and United Stroke Alliance's website, where you can find some of the other informational things, Strikeout Stroke, and what's the name of the new educational program?
It has a name. It's Stroke Conference Days, but it has a name. But I can't remember what it is. Strength over stroke. Strength over stroke.
Oh, another SOS. So they're both SOS.
Yep.
All right, well, that makes it easy
Okay.
to remember. So all that information will be in the description underneath the video, and thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Hope your husband continues to have good recovery.
I hope so as well. Thank you.
All right.